Our knowledge of this formidable weapon comes largely from the Tudor warship, the Mary Rose. Raised from the Solent in the 1980s, the Mary Rose has revealed a trove of artefacts, including a number of perfectly preserved war bows. These discoveries have given incredible insights into late medieval archery, inspiring Todd and Joe's investigations here today. So Joe, there's a 76 pound bow, but in medieval times, we know from the Mary Rose that bows were much heavier. Well, what would this one be?
So
this bigger bow?
This is sort of 135, 140 pound draw weight, which is what you need really to shift a heavy arrow to do some damage.
So we're talking about a warbow.
A warbow, yeah, exactly.
And we know from the Mary Rose, the bows that were brought up for that, the average draw weight, I think, was 140 pounds.
Yeah, 140, so that's perfect. Fits in with what my findings have been to shoot a heavy arrow decent weight.
But there were bows on the Mary Rose that were much heavier, 180, 185 pounds draw weight. I mean, monsters.
Yeah, as you say, it's some real big ones which take a long time to learn how to shoot accurately. Years, in fact. So this one's about 160 pounds-ish. So yeah, you've got the real nice flexible sapwood and the nice, hard, compression-resilient belly, heartwood, which makes a perfect belly.
As we had seen previously, there's only one way to determine the true strength of a bow. It's another tense moment for Joe as he tests the heavier warbow. Wow, 154 pound draw weight. It's a similar draw weight to those discovered aboard the Mary Rose.
I get big guys who go to the gym all the time who oh, I'll pull that. They literally pull it halfway. They can't do it because their muscles haven't developed in the right way to pull that bow.
It's for these reasons why practice was so important for archers, and might be why Edward I insisted that men forgo all other sports. But of course, it wasn't just the science of attack that was changing, so was the science of defence. And there's one item more that can attest to this: armour.
Could you hold that for me,
Yep.
mate?
Yep.
Squash it in.
Got it.
There we go. So this is a breastplate made by a friend of mine, Ash, and it's representative of one that we would have found Agincourt, a little different to Towton, but not massively different.
It's very strong, isn't it? I mean,
It is very strong. Just push it in because it's a variable thickness, and what it means by that is the threat, of course, comes predominantly from the front. Yeah. And so it's thicker at the front than it is at the sides, and that saves you a bit of weight.
So how thick would it be in the middle of the front?
2.5 millimetres.
2.5 millimetres?
Yeah, something like that on this
Wow.
one.
And is that designed predominantly to resist arrows or other weapons as well? What was the main motivation for that strength?
Well, it certainly is going to be resisting arrows, but of course an awful lot of their combat is going to be on foot to foot against other knights and so on. So really it's a multi-purpose item. Okay. But it is the layering, the composite layer of the armour that helps to defend it against multiple threats. So you've got a padded garment under here, which is not massively thick, but maybe 4, 6, 8 layers. Over that you've got the mail, then over that you've got the breastplate and the rest of the armour, the arms and the legs and everything else. And it's that combination that really helps you to resist the attack.
And this fluting, is that to deflect arrows?
Here, yeah, you can see that fundamentally you've got the neck defences here. What you don't want is arrows hitting and skidding up, ricocheting up under the neck. And so that deflects them away. And again, it's exactly the same on tank armour now, or at least certainly was Second World War. It's exactly the same thing. You do not want the shells coming in just under the turret.
Skipping in, yeah.
Skipping under. So that just sends them away. So it's the same device for hundreds of years has worked.
Grabbing our bows, Joe and I are going to put the armour to the test. Wow.
Yeah.
The armour worked.
It did.
Broke the arrow.
Low down, yeah.
Ooh.
That is nasty.
Wow, that's really interesting. Now, he's in trouble. He's got 2 injuries here, 3 injuries. But, I mean, despite the strength of this plate armour, you've made a hole in it, which is amazing.
Well, you kind of got 2 things going on. So one, Joe's made a hole through it, which is amazing. You know, arrows, bent piece of wood making holes through sheet steel. You don't imagine that. But then the other thing is the armour has done exactly what it's meant to do. That you've got a bit of deformation, that takes some of the shock out, some of the force. But then also, it hasn't penetrated deeply. Yes, there's a hole there, but it's not a hole that's deep enough for the arrow to pass through and hurt the person inside. So it looks a lot worse than it is. To the guy inside, it's nothing.
Except that you've got a mass of men facing 5,000 archers, firing at, at this range. That would have been just terrifying. Soon, battlefields would be filled with the sounds of gunpowder and small arms as cannons became the weapons of choice. The days of the bow were numbered, but they weren't over, not just yet. To see this evidence, I've come to one of the most famous shipwrecks in the world, the Mary Rose. The Mary Rose was a veteran of many campaigns, having served Tudor kings for 33 years. And it would be fighting in another Anglo-French war that would see her luck finally run out. Sinking off the coast of England in 1545, the Mary Rose claimed the lives of nearly 500 crew members and lay undisturbed for over 400 years before she was raised in a daring feat of marine archaeology. I've come to meet a member of the team who was involved in the raising of the Mary Rose, Dr. Alex Hildred.
This is amazing. I mean, to stand here this close is really special. It feels like time travel. So what do we know about how the ship sank?
Well, what we do know, because we found the archaeological evidence, is that all of the gun ports, both on the starboard side and the port side, all the lids were open and hinged above them. She goes out of the fleet, and we've got a very good image of that. We call it the Cowdray engraving, but it's the encampment of the King's forces at Portsmouth. And you see that the flagship, the Henry VIII, is engaging the French galleys. The Mary Rose has come out from behind her, because the rest of them are sort of in wedge formation behind, and fired the guns on her starboard side as she goes over, and then turns and sinks.
So she's turning then to the port?
She's turning to port. Why she did it, whether the ship was slightly sluggish, whether she'd been hit earlier in the morning by French gunfire, we don't know. The French actually say that they sank her.
But if she was sunk, then any damage that would have caused that would have been on the side of the ship that's now missing.
That's right. And so we have crawled over the side of the ship looking for battle damage. There's absolutely nothing, but you're right. It would be on the side that's missing.
When a battleship comes back to port, the first thing they do is take everything off and fix it up. What's unique about the Mary Rose is that she was engaged in combat, so you had everything on board that a warship would have at the peak of its operation.
Absolutely, and we have an inventory for all of the vessels within the King's fleet, and you can tick off the things, and so this is an inventory of what she should be if she was fully functional, and we can tick off archaeologically virtually all of those things.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The artefacts preserved in this tragedy would help revolutionise our understanding of Tudor archery. Amongst the cannons and small arms discovered were hundreds of warbows.
So we're now in the reserve collection of the museum, where we're storing some of the longbows that aren't on display.
Oh my God, look at that. That is amazing. You've just opened the door to a medieval bowyer's workshop.
These are all from one chest in the lower deck, so they were in store, which is why they're in such light condition. They haven't taken up any colour from the sediments because they've been protected by the elm chest.
They look like new.
They do, don't they?
They're, what, 500 years old?
Well, nearly.
But what fascinates me is they're bending away from the string. The reverse curve shows that these are reflex bows. Their arms bend away from the archer when unstrung, allowing the bow to be put under greater strength when the string is attached, meaning they can be shorter but still retain the same draw weight as their full-length counterparts. Perfect for the confined spaces of a ship. But not all of the bows were found stored in boxes, a handful were discovered loose, suggesting they might have been in use only seconds before the Mary Rose sank.
This, by difference, are some of the ones that were found loose as opposed to, they fell out of chests, perhaps on the upper deck. And you can see immediately the different coloration, and some of them are actually damaged. That was obviously broken and we've glued it back together again. But that bend there is probably where, with compression within the sediments.
This looks like it was strung. This one was strung with a string when the ship went down.
There are some.
That's a strong boat. You know, this was probably in the hand of an archer at the time the ship went down.
Amazingly, nearly 500 years later, the maker's marks, the signature of the men who crafted these bows for Henry VIII, are still clearly visible.
Oh yeah.
Can you see?
Yes.
So the edge of it.
Little points being put in.
There's another.
Yeah, there's a maker's mark there. The bowyer maybe.
The Mary Rose bows provide incredible evidence of the true role of archery in Tudor warfare.
When I started to make bows, most of the literature that described the English longbow based opinions on Victorian target bows, which are toys by comparison to these bows. It was only when this weight of evidence turned up, it was undeniable. Here was a light on true medieval archery. It's amazing.
Well, the Mary Rose is amazing because you've got things, these weapons that were used out of wood next to the newest bronze guns that were, you know, the last one was cast in 1543. So, and it was, you know, with huge expense to produce, to cast 3 tons of metal, molten metal, and cast these guns. And here we have simple sticks.
I mean, it's fantastic to see. What an incredible collection.
11,000 years in the making, this is where our story of archery ends.
Thanks for watching this video on the History Hit YouTube channel. You can subscribe right here to make sure you don't miss any of our great films that are coming out. Or if you are a true history fan, check out our special dedicated history channel, historyhit.tv. You're going to love it.